Let's talk Broncos. Joey drew the short straw, so he's not on the program tonight. That means you get Zach Seegers and myself, Bree Maestas. If you haven't already, do me a favor. After this show, after you're done listening to us talk about the Broncos, make sure you tune in and check out Altitude Adjustment. That aired for you on Tuesday. You're going to want to rewatch that because, boy, was it a fun time. And also, Zach, do we have a post-game show for the Week 15 matchup?
We will, to my knowledge. I don't think there should be any issues with that. We should be ready to do post game on Broncos Packers, which we'll talk about a little later here. But I think that's like probably the toughest game remaining on the Broncos schedule. I'm really excited for it. I think it'll really shape how everyone's talking about this team nationally. So I think high stakes game, and I'm excited for it.
I'm also excited for it. I'm a little bit worried. We'll break into why, and we'll try to discuss what to watch for and all that exciting stuff. You know the drill here. You've watched the show before, but I think before we get ahead of ourselves, we should probably talk about what happened against the Raiders, continuing their streak. The Broncos are victorious once again. Listen, I wasn't worried about this game necessarily, but I do think that it was important that they scored a few more points. And then aside from the garbage time field goal, which I know anybody who had a bet on that game was probably shaking their fist at the clouds when that happened. The Raiders are a precarious bunch, right? There's something eating them alive. I'm not sure what. I think it's a multitude of things, but they're now on track for the overall number one pick. Zach, in general, what was the read from the Raiders game on the Raiders team? Because I think this is important to cover as we look to the strength of the AFC West in the years to come.
Yeah, I think this team is a long way away from turning it around. I think if they make all the right decisions, it's like a 2-year turnaround. And I mean, like all the right decisions. We've seen the Broncos, kind of experience a 2-year turnaround, making all the right decisions. It's hard to do. I think it's achievable for the Raiders if like they knock this head coach hire out of the park. They understand that they're going to be bad next year too, and they need to slow build this thing. And then, maybe they hit on a quarterback and start surprising people in like 2027. But I also think you can look at this game and go, man, the Raiders might not be good for a long time. Something I've been thinking about in the wake of this game for both the Raiders and the Chargers, like, I don't know when they're ever going to be successful as long as those teams stay in Vegas and LA, because the Chargers have no fans in LA. They might not have any fans anywhere, but like there's just, at least in San Diego, it wasn't like all the other problem now. And you look at Vegas, this was a Broncos home game. Like all the photos of the stadium, it's like 70-30 orange. So many Broncos fans went down there. You could hear it. It was audible on the broadcast. I heard it on our KOA radio broadcast. I heard it on the TV broadcast too. On third downs, when the Raiders had the ball, the crowd was louder than third downs when the Broncos had the ball. And the Broncos aren't an anomaly there. Like LA and Vegas are tourist cities where the Chargers don't have a lot of fans. The Raiders don't have a lot of fans. So oftentimes these teams are playing like 17 road games a year. And I just don't know how you can find, and then in the playoffs, 4 road games in a row. I don't know how, or I guess 2-3 road games in a row before a neutral site Super Bowl, which would be like the closest thing they have all season in theory to a home field advantage. Probably not the Chargers, but the Raiders, at least. Like we know the fans would show up for that. I don't know how you ever find sustained success with that formula. And then you factor in dysfunctional ownership too. Like, I think the Chargers have a great head coach and a great quarterback, and you see like they kind of max out as a who still, like, they haven't won a playoff game in the Justin Herbert era. They haven't won the division in the Justin Herbert era. And look at what the Broncos are doing with Bo Nix. So that was a little Chargers and Raiders, but I think both are kind of, even though the Chargers won, just looking at the Raiders state of things, because let's say the Raiders do hit on head coach and quarterback. Do they just end up being like the Chargers, where it's like, even with like the great quarterback and the great coach, they're like an 11-16 best case scenario? I think that's kind of feeling like reality to me right now.
Yeah, I think that sums it up nicely. It's an interesting conversation when you get into what happens to the Broncos at a competitive level when the rest of the AFC is good. And I think the Chargers can somewhat find that balance. I mean, we saw what Justin Herbert was able to do on Monday night, but you see a lot of hot and cold out of these teams, and I think that now that the Broncos are riding high at that 11-2, it's nice to look down and peer down upon your fellow teams within the division. And I just think that the Raiders are a long way away. Thank you for poking fun of me privately that I'm going to bring publicly to me being ahead of my years in the Tom Brady Pledge of Allegiance, as he seems to be front running that team directly into the turf. So thank you for the sport of football.
Yeah, big shout out to Tom Brady. And Bree, I'm going to flip it on you, throw a question your way.
Yes.
Do you think looking at the Raiders, how did it change how I viewed the AFC West? Looking at the Chiefs and them dropping to 6-7, hey, it's the thing. What do you? How did the Chiefs' performance and them looking like pretty rough against the Texans? It was like Mahomes' worst game of his career. You had the like doofy Travis Kelce plays where he's like tipping a game-losing interception to the Texans. The Chiefs fandom is like calling for Andy Reid's head. Where are you at right now, top of the AFC West landscape? And like, is this still the Chiefs' domain, or is it up for grabs going forward into the future?
Well, I think crossing road demons make those long curses for like 10 years. So I don't think we're fully in the clear. I think you're going to see a lot of the anomalies happening where they're able to win a couple of more games and make it a little bit tighter than it is right now. But I don't think that dispels any of the current trajectory where we're seeing them technically fall off. And I know that sounds humorism. So I want to quantify it with the Chiefs are still an Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes led Chiefs team. And I think that's a dangerous combination. But what we're seeing right now is the perils of not being able to maintain and obtain talent and continuously develop. I mean, for a while there, they were cherry picking wide receivers just to make a roster. And I don't think that's a long-term stability plan or strategy when it comes to the Chiefs and what they do well. I think a lot of live by the sword, died by the sword is what we're seeing, and they're them unable to really capitalize. And then you have your leftover number one target in Travis Kelce, who kind of seems like he's out of the game. And whether that be by personal distraction or simply aging out, I'm not going to discredit his role as one of the better tight ends that we've ever seen play the game. But I think that there is a lot of fall off. And I think that starts to leach into the roster and into the locker room when you see kind of world star athletes start to diminish a little bit. And I think that could be said for a lot of teams. I think that talent wise, and you have Andy Reid, who can pretty much right any ship, having a tough time being at 6-7. Ultimately, I think they will win more games. And I think that they will continue to be a thorn in the side of all of the AFC. It's not to say that I'm not rejoicing a little bit as I see them struggle. Right. And that comes from a long-standing war within the AFC West, not just with the Chiefs, but all of the teams, and what the Broncos have had to do since 2015, and what has felt like a single snowball rolling downhill plunge towards the obsoletism. And so it's nice to see the counterbalance with the Chiefs struggling, but I don't want to count them out, because I still think that they have so much veteran prowess when it comes to winning games and making deep runs in the playoffs, that kind of outweighs some of the struggles that they're seeing right now. So it would just be indelibly irresponsible for me to sit here and be like, I don't foresee them making it. Their time is over. I think that's a little bit of a cautionary tale, but I do think that it's going to take a lot of off-season acquisition, and we're going to have to see, just exactly what they're made of. I'm not 100% confident in them being what they were. And as far as the dynasty or the Chiefs kingdom, being out and about, I think it's about that time that it starts to kind of shift. Now, who's taking the crown, I think, is a more important conversation. As I already said, that the Chargers are up and down, their temperament's all over the place, and they have Justin Herbert and Harbaugh, so it seems to kind of balance that out. But the Broncos did what they need to do over the last couple of seasons to build a foundation and then upon that and then develop and pay their team. This very young team is ahead of schedule, and they're going to continue to get better along the long and short list of having sustainability and stability with head coach and quarterback. The sky's the limit. I feel a little bit better about what that means for long-term gains. And especially just in the world of football, right? This happens. About a decade, your teams fall off, or you're something like the Cleveland Browns and you never quite figure it out. So I'm feeling good about the state of the team right now within the AFC West and that ecosystem. It feels really good not to be last. It feels not good not to be like a 2-7 team heading into the bye week and having to slog out the last half of the season.
That it does. It feels this has been a joy of a season, and I just hope it keeps going through the playoffs. I don't want to be the one and done team.
I don't either. And I also think it's interesting because we were talking about this. I like to recall, how our temperament was just as a crew. Let's Talk Broncos has been talking about where this team could possibly be this season, or where they're going. And I think just 2 years ago, we were down and out of sorts, and I was lamenting about being in my mid-40s before they were good again. And I'm glad that I was mistaken and that we've all been caught by storm, because this is the fun part of it, right? I think a similar feeling was reverberating through Broncos country at the acquisition point of Peyton Manning. And the sense of it all was, my goodness, we have something on our hands. Now, I'm not comparing the offenses, but I do think winning games and winning them at all costs does count for something. And I don't like the lucky adage that's been thrown out, right? There's no asterisks in these wins. They're wins. And that's ultimately what happens. Now, in a convincing fashion, I hope the end of season shows us something exactly what they're made of. And at the end of the day, as long as that you're seeing it right now, and I want to jump into it. This is going to lead my question. Is you're seeing it right now with the offense kind of getting it all together, right? The last little bits are falling in place. The wheel and the cogs are fitting together. So there's movement and it's efficient. Does this bode well in what you've seen from Bo Nix really putting it together in what would be deemed his sophomore slump year of being able to elevate this offense and pull off a convincing win? Now, I know it was against the Raiders, but in the NFL, every team is NFL caliber. Regardless of whether or not they're underperforming, there's still NFL level players on the team that you're facing. The Raiders are a formidable opponent because they're a division rival. Is Bo Nix now starting to click a little bit more? And are you feeling a little bit more level-headed when it comes to his play?
So I absolutely feel he's starting to cook more. I definitely feel better about his play. I think he's been playing a lot better. I would not put him at this is not going to be popular. I would not put him at the point yet where he is elevating the offense. I don't think he is making it better than the sum of its parts. Now I will say it's been a lot better. I'm working on an article right now over the past since the mini buy, which I'm looking at a lot of splits based on that. They are a top 8 offense, just about any way you measure it. I think they're 5th in EPA per play. They're 8th in success rate. And shoot, I forget if that was overall or just on early downs, but on early downs, they rank about the same. And I think that's really meaningful because third down numbers can be a little wonky. They're so valuable, obviously, like converting a 3rd and 15 is an extremely valuable play. But third downs are also a very small sample. It's the down you're going to get to the least just by the nature of how the game works, right? So of the stats, it's a little less sticky. And so like Carson Wentz is the poster child of this. In 2017, he was on like the most ridiculous third down heater we've ever seen. And that regressed and he kind of just like fell off a cliff. The Broncos are like in the front half of the season, they were kind of relying in the passing game, at least on that like third down. They were much better on third down than they were on the other downs. Now they're a top offense on early downs too. And that is something you that's much more likely to continue carrying over through the rest of the season and into next season. And like beyond the analytics, like the eye test just suggests it. Bo's not as frantic back there. His feet aren't perfect, but they are so much better than they were like even in that first Raiders game. It just, the game looks so much slower to him. I hate to simplify things to like the helmet movement, because that's an easy way you can see a quarterback going through their reads. And I think sometimes, especially if you're like evaluating a college quarterback, I made this mistake my first time scouting, and you'll see the helmet moving around a lot, and you're like, whoa, this guy's reading out the play like a suit doesn't know what the hell he's seeing. So there's a balance, but you see like there's intentionality clearly with what Bo's doing at this point. And he really has come a long way. Do I think he's making this offense better than it otherwise should be? I don't know if I'd go that far, but I think he's no longer limiting it. And I do think for the first 10 weeks of the season, not every single week, but generally speaking, he was limiting it. Now we're seeing what it can be with a pretty young, exciting nucleus, a pretty great maestro pulling the strings, and a solid quarterback that is growing and continually growing in the right direction. Packers week is going to be a big test for him, though, because these past 3 games, like I know the Chiefs have a lot of credit. They've actually been like a bad defense this year, or underwhelming at least. They rank like around 23rd, 24th in a lot of different things. And then the Raiders defense in recent weeks has been rough. On the season, they're a little more average, but over the last month or so, they've been pretty bad. And then the Commanders might have the worst defense in the NFL, at least one of them. So it's been a great step in the right direction. If he does it against the Packers this week, it would fuel a lot of confidence for me.
Yeah, I do like that. It's not a benchmark. It's not a measuring stick. It really is the opportune test to see if this Broncos team has what it takes to compete the rest of this way, because they're going to see some tough matchups when it comes to the playoffs. But the ultimate win is that a win clinches a playoff berth there for the Broncos. So I'd love for them to score that at home. I will be taking my family with me, so it will be an extraordinary affair. And if they lose, I just don't think I can face the kids, look them in the eye, and say that I'm so sorry for bringing you to this. If you're not elevating the offense with Bo Nix's play yet, right, that means that there's room for growth. I think that comes with figuring out a couple of things, but it looks like the Broncos are on the right track with their run game. I believe it was 157 rushing yards for the Broncos. That's a good starting point against a Raiders defense that I don't think is particularly terrible in run defense. So Zach, get your little data fingers ready as you tell me how the Packers stock up against the run. But I want to say the Broncos are really telling us who they are right now. I think not trailing in that game is important, because if there was an early score by the Raiders, I think that alone would have been refreshing. And they were able to control the game for the better part of 3 quarters, dictating tempo, leaning on the run game. And Bo Nix had played with a lot of confidence. And so RJ Harvey really has the opportune moment. He was physical, decisive, really able to turn a couple of plays into manageable circumstances. And I got to say, if that continues to improve, so you have like 75 yards out of him, 100 all purpose, what are you looking for RJ Harvey to do? Does he need to consistently hit that benchmark in order to be deemed successful? Does that help the offense really end the season strong?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just consistently, it's adding more J.K. Dobbins to his game is what the Broncos need to see from RJ Harvey. And I think that's a hard ask. But what we saw against the Raiders was a little of what we saw from him in college, in the sense that he was just better at shaking off tackles, shaking off contact. He averaged 3.3 yards after contact per attempt in this game, which was his second best mark of the season. His best was week 1 against the Titans, but those numbers were funky because on that like 60-yard run he got some contact like at the line of scrimmage. So that gave him like plus 10 yards after contact per carry. But it was just that one carry. Against the Raiders, it was every carry, getting those extra yards. but when I'm talking about him getting the Dobbins element of his game, I'm not just talking power. I think that's an element that helps get him there, but it's about not having those blown up runs that put this offense at second 11 or third and 12 or second and 8, third and 8, whatever it may be, because the passing game's already going to have enough up and down. Like, that's just the nature of having a young quarterback. Most young quarterbacks are going to have their ups and downs. We've seen it from Bo all season with like being dynamite in the fourth quarter and cold earlier in games, or even against the Commanders, like red hot in the first half and then cools down in the second. The run game is supposed to be the stabilized offense. And RJ Harvey, the sales pitch on him was that he was going to be boom or bust, excuse me. So I'm not trying to like hold it against the guy for being the type of runner he's always been, but I think what you really want to see from him, and to his credit, you started to see some of this against the Raiders, is just some more down to down reliability, like an advanced metric that I think it's not perfect because it uses like the chip tracking and like some machine learning or something or rather to try and project how many yards should have been gained on the play. And then compares what you actually gained to that. It's rushing yards over expected. Are you gaining more yards than expectation or less? And I would have thought against the Raiders, RJ Harvey had to be positive. He's been negative most of the year, but I thought Raiders game, he's got to be in the black. And he wasn't. He was like I think he was like negative 30, negative 40 yards or something. Which really didn't match my eye test. Again, like I probably have some pro RJ Harvey bias. But I think that's kind of just what you want to see from him, just picking up the yards that should be there more. Like, this is a quality offensive line. He doesn't need to always look to bounce the runs. I think if he could just, get those 3 yards. Like, that should be, I hope that's the message from like the running backs coach. Like, if we hand you the ball and you get us 4 yards, that's a win. Like, it just about any circumstance, 3 yards, that's a win. So just like run forward, take whatever crease you can get. Cause with his frame, his ability to like run through contact and his speed, he should be able to like just keep this offense on schedule at a higher rate than he has so far. So just a higher rate of successful runs. He's towards the bottom of the league right now in success rate. Just getting that up would be a game changer.
In the interim, as obviously the Broncos are down J.K. Dobbins and probably will be for the rest of the season, I think the Broncos making the moves to pick up Sincere McCormick and Kyrese Rowan as a wide receiver lets me know that they're still putting a lot of emphasis on securing up that depth for the offense. And that to me gives me a little bit of vote of confidence. I don't think Sincere McCormick really moves the needle on how I think the run game is going to look, but I was even shocked to see what Jaleel McLaughlin was able to do when he was in there. And I think there's a lot of room to gain. That is an interesting stat that you threw out there as far as yards. How did you reference it?
Rushing yards over expectation.
So basically what you leave out on the field that is still there. Like, man, I had so many opportunities. I think that if they can continue to do what they did against the Raiders, it'll be a little bit harder to do against more bolstered defenses, that they've got a good direction. I still would like them to have a better run game. Like, I think that's intuitive of any team, right? And I think it's going to take bigger star power maybe in the off season. Before we kind of transition here, do you particularly see them moving in that direction to continuously hit at the running back position?
I think they should definitely try. I brought it up on the show last week, I think, and I know it's definitely a little crackpot, but I think, making us like call the Falcons. They'll probably fire Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot. It'll be a new GM and see what it would take, like, hey, are you guys really going to just pay this running back $20 million and have the like Bugatti in the trailer park meme? Or do you want like some draft capital and maybe rebuild? And even if you can't pull off like a crazy deal for that, like, they should absolutely be in the Breece Hall market, in the Tyler Algier market. And I think going into next season, you need RJ Harvey and 2 other running backs that could be legit starters or like high end contributor. I don't want Tyler Bidet. I don't want Jaleel McLaughlin. I mean, like a top 100 draft pick, and or like Tyler Algier, J.K. Dobbins level signing. Like if in my perfect world, RJ Harvey, boom. I don't know if this draft has like a great between the tackles runner to bounce. I think it's a lot of kind of like RJ Harvey-esque guys, funny enough. But like ideally a top 100 pick. If that's not there, like give me J.K. Dobbins and Algier. And yeah, those skill sets are a little redundant. I don't care. I want this team to run the ball like 30 times a game next year. I really think that's, I think, what they want to be doing this year. Like I know the Sean Payton play calling thing and everything. And there's an element of that, but like, if you look at his Saints teams, they would run the ball a lot. Especially when they had like the backup quarterbacks in, the guys who weren't instant Hall of Famers. I think they would love to support Bo. That's literally what he talked about all off season, by the way. Like, oh, you know, we're going to help Bo Nix, give him a great run game. And it just like, it was kind of there for a minute with Dobbins, but I don't know. I think to really unlock it, you need 3 running backs, because if one gets injured, you can't be in this spot where it's like, oh, it's Jaleel McLaughlin / Tyler Bidet and the running back that's super boomer bust. Because I think it puts you in the uncomfortable spot we've seen this run game be over the last month or so.
Yeah, and then it stretches the emphasis out that you don't have a comfortable quarterback, and I think that's the worst thing that you can possibly do. But he's being protected at such a high rate. I think that like it's all fingers crossed right now. We are in championship thinking mode, and I'm not in the scope of Super Bowl or bust, but there's 4 games remaining on this schedule. You have the Packers, the Jaguars, the Chiefs, and the Chargers. So 2 division games that are going to be extremely important for how this works out. But Zach, let's say realistically they win 3, or let's get crazy and say they win out all 4. That makes this team extremely dangerous. Now, I'm not saying that's what I'm expecting out of this team. I think now that the Jaguars have all of a sudden caught fire and Liam Cohen has figured it out and he's not yelling at his quarterback anymore. But to me, I do think the Jaguars are a little bit of a roller coaster. I think the Packers offensively can really underperform. And I think that this defense is going to have to go, and this will be my what to watch for, just spoiler alert, but I think they do really have to finish strong, as we've seen them kind of let off the gas a little bit. So talk to me a little bit about the number 1 seed and if you think it's a fantasy or not.
Yeah, I don't think it's a fantasy at all. Like, you know, it seems like they're the favorite right now, even potentially based on like what analytic model you look at. Some have the Patriots. I think some betting places have the Patriots. Some have the Broncos. The tie here is going to go to the Broncos. And even though the Patriots have an easier schedule, I think that's huge. Like the Patriots do have a desperate Ravens team and a Bills team left. And the Ravens have been playing better ball. Like they lost to the Steelers. Anyone who watched that game saw it was pretty weird. A lot of really bizarre plays and calls happened in that one that really hurt the Ravens. Lamar looks a lot healthier now. He's still injured, but I think he's playing much better than he was like a couple weeks ago against the Bengals on Thanksgiving. Like that was such a hideous performance. Where like I think the Patriots could definitely lose a game or 2. If they lose 2, the Broncos should be fine. If they lose 1, gives the Broncos a little bit of wiggle room to work with. But yeah, these last 4 games are going to be extremely tough. I think the Broncos should feel a bit of pressure. Like I not that they maybe they shouldn't be feeling it, but there is a bit of pressure, I think, on the Broncos. Like, yes, this is a young team and they're building and, oh, the future's so bright and all that. But sometimes you don't know like when your best window is until it's past. Like you look at the Lions. Are they going to have a window as good as they just had a few years ago when they were in the NFC Championship? And Campbell told them all, hey, guys, we might not be back here. At the moment, it was like, oh, of course they're going to be back. And now, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that was the peak of like the Campbell era in Detroit. It's not the most far-fetched thing. And you look at like the Ravens and the Bills, they've both had like crazy good teams over the Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson Jackson runs. Crazy good teams. They've had home field advantage in the postseason, like combined between the two of them, I think like once or twice. They've reached the Super Bowl 0 times. And maybe the Chiefs aren't their like same dynastic selves going forward, but I think that illustrates like, hey, this is a down year in the AFC. Take advantage of it. This might be the Broncos' best chance. Like, I'm not saying it is, but I don't think it's far-fetched. Just even if you think Bo Nix is going to be Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, like, again, just to that point, they've been MVPs or elite quarterbacks for a half decade now. And even if you're like, oh, well, Lamar chokes in the playoffs, Josh Allen doesn't. And like, they haven't made the play, or they haven't made the Super Bowl, let alone win one. Like, they haven't made the conference championship game that many times. They haven't earned home field advantage that many times. This is a golden opportunity for the Broncos, and they need to be doing everything in their darn power to seize it. I feel pretty good about their chances too. The thing that scares me the most is like, they need this defense to go back to being elite. And over the last month, they've been more mediocre. But I'm hopeful what we saw over like the middle of this Raiders game is a sign of things to come on that front.
I feel like it's just an inch away. It is within the ball's grasp. I mean, you have Zach Allen dropping what could have been a pick six there. And it's just like, I think this defense is now in their own head about turnovers. And I've been saying it because I'm hoping it'll come true, but also because I truly do believe that they're a couple of turnovers away from absolutely game wrecking everyone. And these last couple of games are going to be incredibly important as you see the Chargers and the Jaguars continue to heat up. We'll break it down for you every week and what it looks like, but keep the hope alive, Broncos country, because it's an exciting time. I almost sit in a very surreal headspace when it comes to logging on every week, because I almost don't want to be too excited, but I also seem to be beaming with joy every time I get to talk about another win. And I don't remember the last time that we had a streak this long, but that's because my brain is Swiss cheese. So I don't want to set it up for any type of expectation.
Hey, since you set me up, 2015, 2016, last time they had a streak this, or actually, no, they're at 10 now. So the last time they had a streak this long, 2012.
I like those date ranges. I like how that makes me feel. I also like how the altitude makes me feel, and the expectations for this Packers game is pretty fascinating, right? We are late into the season. It is an important endeavor because the Broncos need to continue to rack up wins. There is the unfortunate circumstance and conversation surrounding eventually the NFL rights the wrong and a loss comes to fruition. But I only like to say that because I feel like I need to caveat every positive thing that I say. Don't judge me, because LTB listeners know that I'm like the classic kicked puppy. I don't want to forget where I came from. But Green Bay doesn't particularly like the long punishing drives. And I think this offense is really catching up to speed at an opportune moment, because physical run games, playing at Mile High, they're not affected by the cold so much, right? It's not like we have an advantage in that parameter, but they won't have an advantage either, because it looks like it's going to be a very mild Sunday here in the Mile High City. So the biggest thing for Denver, I think, heading into this game is they have all of the momentum. And I know the Packers look good. They're sitting there at 9-3-1. But I like the idea that there's a couple of edge pieces, and I didn't even mean that in a puntastic way, but there's a lot of pieces here that can bode well for the Broncos controlling the clock. So expectation-wise, Zach Seegers, if the Broncos want to win, what do they need to do to ensure that this happens against this Packers team?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think slowing down Jordan Love is going to be the biggest thing. He can be streaky. He makes some stupid interceptions. This offense, like over the past couple, I'd say since just these past two games. So it is a smaller sample, but they've looked ridiculous. Started doing some research for this upcoming matchup on Tuesday, watching back some games, and the Packers might be finding themselves some. They've been up and down all season. They came out of the gates firing red hot and then had some stinkers. And so I think there is an element of who knows what version of the Packers you're going to get. this team at their best looks, I think, is like not far off the Rams or Seahawks in terms of like the best teams in the NFL. And a lot of that right now is what they're doing offensively, rather than like leaning on a run game that's kind of mediocre to maybe a little under it. They've started to put the game more in Jordan Love's hands, and he's just like, he is dealing. This defense is going to have a tough challenge. Like, I do worry some seeing like what Geno got away with on that opening drive, what Marcus Mariota got away with in that Commanders game. And I'm sure LaFleur is studying that Commanders game and stealing some of that offensive stuff and putting it in this one. Like, if you give Jordan Love in this Packers offense those looks, it's going to be 60-yard touchdowns. So I don't. Also, they take a lot of big explosive shots, so I'm worried about like the Riley Moss PIs and Patrick Surtain PIs and whatever. What they've got to do is make Jordan Love uncomfortable with their pass rush and cover up Christian Watson and everyone downfield. I mean, I think this is also going to be a great stress test for the Packers offense. What I'm watching for in this one is this Packers attack last year really hit a snag against teams that had good coverage units and wanted to play a lot of man against them because they just didn't have that dude that could win one-on-one. You know, down the stretch this season, Christian Watson has started to emerge as maybe that guy. Surtain's going to be as good a challenge as he'll see, though. What does that matchup look like? Are the Packers able to, survive versus man coverage as well as they have all season? Or does it look like it did last year where they kind of get stuck in the mud? One last thing I'll mention about this matchup, because you were talking about the Mile High atmosphere and all that. Even though, there's no cold advantage or whatever, the Packers have only won one game ever in Denver, and they won it in overtime. It was the Dre Bly game, for people that remember that, back in 2007. Sad memories. And if you want to look at the entire series of this history, Broncos going up to Lambeau, these teams have played each other 15 times, not including the Super Bowl. So 15 times where there's a home field advantage. The home team is 13-1-1 in those games. So hopefully that trend continues this week.
You can sprinkle the Super Bowl on there for good measure. I allow it. I understand it doesn't help your stat bowl, but
who's the home team for that? Would it have been the Broncos with their blue? Maybe.
Yeah, I think so. No, because they're. I don't even want to get into the history of everything and be wrong. Yeah. And have Broncos country come for me. It's not. Zach wasn't born, and I was young, so I apologize. Oh shoot! I said that as a joke, and then I realized that you weren't born.
Jewel sang the national anthem. Hey, the more you know. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I just got the Wikipedia page up, and it's got all this different information. Yeah, it looks like the Broncos were the home team based on the scoreboard. They're the bottom team. So, if we want to count that, 14-1-1. Let's go.
Let's go. Jewel singing the national anthem is like the best little nugget that you could throw at me, because it wasn't expected, but it's absolutely on brand. So thank you so much. Maybe we should look at genres and see how many of the genres of national anthems affect the outcome of the game, because I'd like to see the correlation, not causation, graph when you get that completed. So I've submitted my request. Thank you so much. What else are you watching for? Because I think I kind of already talked about the run game. I'm going to talk about maybe the turnovers, because any sort of short field disadvantage is going to be I don't even know, like tenfold in the importance of this game, because in a game against a formidable opponent like the Packers, I think the Broncos need to capitalize. And if you capitalize off of turnovers, it can't be field goals, right? Because 3 points lets teams hang around, and touchdowns really bury them down. And you've seen Bo Nix's composure over the last couple of games, playing some of his best football. I think that Sean Payton really is getting, his sea legs have calmed down, and it's the type of December game that really really can solidify. Zach mentioned it. It's been a big topic of conversation lately, but you really solidify the late season rise for this team. And ultimately, I know we love the idea that the narrative could change, but I think that you see this Denver team do all of the things, right? Limit the penalties by playing smart. You have the opportunity to lean on the run. You have the, if you're going to talk about winning in the trenches, then your offensive line is going to do what it needs to do. Your defensive line, that front seven is going to be strong and dominating. And I think controlling the clock at the end of the day, I know, it matters, but I think you really offset that. You completely skew the momentum, and the Broncos have the opportunity to do all things well. We've seen special teams really pop off lately. We've seen the offense really get it together, and we know what this defense is capable, right? So if you put it together against a tough matchup, ultimately, I think that's going to be the winning formula. And that's really why it plays into the defense getting the job done. Turnovers are going to happen. Jordan Love is one of the most impressive quarterbacks in the league. What I do think that happens is he still kind of gets in his head, and it can be a roller coaster of emotions when that offense really starts to struggle. And I'm going to, I think it's going to play into my bold prediction here a little bit, but Zach, I want your last kind of what to watch for key to the game.
Sure.
What is important for this game on Sunday? And then we'll go into, if you need to, you can tie it into your bold prediction. Drop yours in the chat if you're watching along at home. And I don't know, let's send it home strong, Zach.
Yeah, but the other thing I'm watching for in this one is who do the Packers determine the weak link is on the Broncos offensive line, and what does that look like? Micah Parsons, part of what makes him such a special defensive player is he's like such a Swiss Army knife as a pass rusher. He can rush over the center, over the guard, or outside the tackle, inside the tackle. He is such a malleable piece in that sense. I'm trying to not use chess piece because I had it pointed out to me recently that like movable chess piece, every chess piece moves. It's not the best comparison. I keep almost going there, but I'm trying my best not to say it. Anyways, I think he's obviously an amazing talent, but he becomes even more deadly. And the Browns have kind of started doing this with Myles Garrett too, because they'll just zero in on like, okay, who's your worst pass blocker? That guy. All right, get ready to try and block Micah Parsons, 30 times this game, 40 times this game. Do they determine that's Wattenberg? Do they determine that's Paucheski? Does Powers make a crazy return and they decide it's him coming off injury? And, they're going to determine it's someone. How does that someone hold up, or someone's? Because if they don't hold up well, and you've got Micah Parsons, blowing up plays constantly, like it's going to be very, very hard for the Broncos to win this game, obviously. If they hold up well and you're able to neutralize Parsons some, or his impact for this defense some, they're a lot less impactful. They're not that scary a defense. On the season, their numbers are pretty middling. They've started to improve down the stretch, but a lot of that is the result of Parsons playing his best ball recently. I think if you can limit his impact on this game, which is going to be very, very difficult to do, but if they can do it, that's a good path for the Broncos.
It's a good time for a strong ace block is all I'm going to say. But the good news is that they seem to have the idea they can double and triple team a lot of these D linemen and find a little bit of time out there. I think that you always have some question marks when there's a ripple effect on the offensive line. We obviously have been sans Ben Powers for some time. I think Paucheski has done a great job filling in there, but there's always the question mark of who is the weakest link and how is it going to hurt the rest of the team as they feel pressured by one of the better defensive players in the league. And I think that, has a little bit of that sense of the kind of the boogeyman to him, right? You get that from a Max Crosby, who's the only good player on the Raiders team. And then you get it from a Micah Parsons, who has gone team to team and continued that uphill battle. So speaking of defense, I'm going to tie it into my bold prediction because I think now I was trying to look, and I've been doing very turnover heavy, but I think that instead I'm going to go with a defensive onslaught of limiting Jordan Love. And simply because I've been talking about the up and down roller coaster that I think the Packers offense is, that I hope it's an off night or an off day since it's a 2:00 game. Let's say, and I don't know if it's going to be bold enough. So bear with me and we'll play a little bit of the higher lower game. I think Jordan Love can be held to less than 200 yards. And I'm going to say the Broncos also have a interception.
I like it. I really hope you're right. I think if that happens, they probably win this football game. I'm going to fade it. I think Love's on a heater. I think there's a pretty good chance they get an interception on him, but the 200 yards, I think that's going to be tough to pull off. Hey, Broncos, you want to prove you're a defense that deserves to be mentioned along the likes of 2015. That 2015 team had prime Aaron Rodgers come into the building and held him to 77 yards. If they can even approximate that performance.
I love that you did that callback. I absolutely love it. I was staring at Aaron Rodgers' picture just over here in this corner, and it was ringing and reverberating in my head. Although I want to I want to call a little bit of a question is what's your definition of a heater? Because let's say against the Eagles on November 10th, he had 176, 174 against the Giants, and 139 against the Vikings, 234 apiece versus the Lions and the Bears. So are you really thinking he's going to be that much more bold, like crazy? Is it going to be long passes? It's going to be a giant 80-yard touchdown, isn't it? That screws me over.
The one thing he looks, so what I'd worry is I think he's like more dialed in accurately from an accuracy perspective than Mahomes. And
his passer rating is going to be through the roof.
And so like if you give him those deep shots that we saw Mahomes get a shot at this last game, I think you're in trouble. You know, like you can't give him those same opportunities. If I go back to week 10, just to put this in perspective, the Packers have the third best offense in the league by EPA per play. That's just overall. In terms of drop back, they're also third. In terms of drop back success rate, they are sixth. So that's maybe some of the Jordan Love variants, but he's hitting those explosives. He does not take a lot of sacks. I think, although he makes some boneheaded throws, he's only got like 4 or 5 interceptions this season. He hits you for a lot of big explosives, and he's limiting the super negative explosives. Like he is a very hard quarterback to sack. That's something to watch for this game. Like, can the pass rush get home? So he's definitely had some lower yardage performances. I also think some of that. Let me look up his raw stats really quick. He's been he hasn't been a super high usage passer. Against the Bears, 25 attempts, against the Lions, 30, against the Vikings, 21, against the Giants, 24. Then he had a string of 3 games over 35. But we're looking at over the last month, he's averaging, I don't know, probably about 25, 24 attempts a game. So there's not a super high usage rate there, but man, the plays he is throwing the ball are deadly.
Yeah, absolutely. Is deadly. Give me your bold prediction because I want to know how I can fade yours.
My bold prediction, Bree Maestas. I want to keep RJ Harvey. I want to see RJ Harvey keeping it going. Excuse me. I want to see RJ Harvey keep it going. That's what I wanted to say. I think he goes. Oh man, what's a good one? I'm not going that direction. I don't feel good about it. What do I want to do? Think I'm going to say Bo Nix stays on his heater. I'm going to say he scores 3 touchdowns and has 0 turnovers.
3 touchdowns, 0 turnovers.
Yeah, rushing counts. 3 total touchdowns, 0 turnovers.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Now that the rushing touchdown counts, I definitely think that'll happen. Zach, I think it's bold,
right.
but I also agree with you. I'm not even slapping you in the face at this point. I'm not like Joey where I'm coming here and just fading your picks because it's the cool thing to do. Joey doesn't even get to give his predictions because he's busy doing other things that are more important than hanging out with us.
He forgot to give them to us, so we don't have them.
He did. He doesn't even get to play anymore. Score prediction. I'm taking the under. And I do think that the Broncos are able to pull it out because I think that's the road where we're heading, right? Optimism City, 21-20. I think it's going to be close. It's going to give me a heart attack. And I'm going to ultimately come back and talk about this team very stressed out.
Okay. I will tell you what's going through my head here. After the Chiefs game, I was like, screw this. This team's awesome. I'm not picking against them again the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Now we're here, and in my heart of hearts, like if I was picking this game, honestly, I don't know if I'm picking the Broncos, but I'm like, hey, I felt like an idiot. I think I should maybe change here and be picking the Broncos. That said, I don't want to mess with the formula. Like my colleague Benjamin Albright on KOA, we do our score predictions every week. He was doubting the Broncos against the Cowboys. Broncos look great. They win. Down the I think he might have even picked against them in the Giants game, or he was calling it a trap game. Anyways, picked against them with the Cowboys. Broncos look great. Win. Picked against them with the Texans. Broncos win. Then, even though he thought they would beat the Raiders, was like, hey, there's some sort of streak thing here. I'm going to go against my honest beliefs and pick the Raiders anyways. And you know what? The Broncos damn near lose that game. And then he genuinely picks the Chiefs. Broncos win that game. It looks pretty good. Goes back to being like, they're going to beat the Commanders. But to keep the streak alive, I'm going to pick the Commanders. And they darn near almost lose that one. So I know I'm being wildly superstitious here, but I don't want to tempt fate. I am going, Broncos 23. Oh, wait, I have them scoring 3 touchdowns. Broncos 27. Packers 23. I'm doing it. Let's go, Broncos.
Let's go, Broncos.
No, dude, maybe I don't. I don't want to be the reason why. No, I can't do it. I can't be the reason why. I'd rather people be mad at me because I do think the Packers are going to win in my heart of hearts. Me picking against the Broncos has served them well so far. They lost to the Colts and Chargers when I picked them, maybe against my better judgment. We're going Packers on this one. I'm sorry. Packers 28, Broncos 27.
Oh my God. I don't love it. But you heard it here first. Zach Seegers is sacrificing himself for the greater good. And you can you can credit him for an 11 game win streak.
And I'm not doing anything funky. I'm not angering the football gods here. I do think the Packers will win this game. I'm being honest. I think that's the right way to hopefully keep things flowing Denver's way. I'm trying not to anger the football gods here. I haven't ever been in this spot. I'm used to just thinking, how are we going to have a good draft pick at this time of year?
Yeah, I don't know what to do with my hands. We'll be back with another episode next week. Hopefully the crew can be all together so we can break it down with you. In the meantime, thank you for watching.
What's your
Thanks for tuning in. Oh, 21-20 Broncos. I thought I gave it.
No, sorry.
I don't think you were listening.
I'm sorry. I was melting down. My brain was in a rough spot, I think, as everyone just saw.
Because there was something pulling from the universe to make sure that you got that right. So thank you for correcting it and making sure that we still have something to cheer for when it comes to next week. We appreciate you watching. We'll be back with another episode of Let's Talk Broncos. Like I said, check out Altitude Adjustment, and Full Field Read will be back together soon. Watch for the post game so you can react along with Zach Seegers, Mike Carmelini, and David Talks Broncos.